other. Okay, well then we'll bring this meeting back to order. Welcome to everyone who's with us on Zoom. It's nice to have you here. The closed session report, the board met in closed session and unanimously ratified the voluntary resignation agreement with employee ID number 116486. And now the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the students from Eucalyptus Hills and HomeFlex. Is he Jin here with us?
Okay, just one moment.
Okay. Hi, Jen.
Hi.
Nice
Okay.
to see you.
Hi, thank you for having me here today. So we will start with Eucalyptus Hills. And I hope you could see this, and stop me if you can't.
This is Mrs. Peterson. Let me share with you the magic that happens each day at Eucalyptus Hills. Half of our TK classes are Spanish immersion, while the other half are English, and the partnership of both on our campus makes Eucalyptus Hills one of high-quality instruction, rich with language and culture, while keeping true to our play-based model. Since we have the youngest learners, we closely follow all safety guidelines inside and outside the classroom. Eucalyptus Hills has created a unique instructional program different from the other schools for the 2021 school year, since we have all of Lakeside's TK students on our one campus. Each teacher starts her school day on campus teaching in person, and then each of the teachers jump online to teach distance learning via Zoom in the afternoon. This model allows each student to have consistency by staying with his or her teacher from August 20th till June 11th, the last day of school, regardless of whether a parent chooses on campus and then distance learning and back on campus again.
I'm thankful for my teacher because she teaches me about my schoolwork. I like school because I like doing my homework and I like my fun. I am thankful for learning, I'm thankful for school, and I'm thankful for my teacher. I love school because I'm thankful for my teachers.
And I am very thankful for our teachers and staff for continuing to pave the way and developing an exceptional, personalized, academic, and social-emotional TK program.
And we're gonna jump right into HomeFlex. And this is a few minutes longer. And stop me if you can't hear.
Take 4 educators and 99 students and their families who have chosen an innovative and personalized path for academic and social emotional learning this school year. And you have HomeFlex. Here is a sample of what our parents are saying about us. This year, HomeFlex is the only school in Lakeside Union School District that spans all 10 grades, from TK through 8th grade. We do offer in-person learning on Wednesdays only at this time, and we follow all public health safety protocols along with all schools in our district.
Schedule and curriculum that's flexible and suits our needs from week to week. We're supported by a team of teachers who are credentialed and experienced and can support us through various Zooms and extracurricular activities. We have a principal that provides us with a community of other people going through the same thing as us that we wouldn't have if we didn't have HomeFlex.
HomeFlex Reads was a day celebrating literacy. After our parent group collected book donations, students came to our school field to choose as many books as they wanted to keep and build their home/classroom library. HomeFlex STEM Day allowed our teaching staff to demonstrate science standards in instruction for our families in the most innovative way so that learning comes alive at home and with us. Plus, HomeFlex kicked off a partnership with Scripps Research Institute. Our students are able to visit science labs and learn directly from chemists.
On the powder, if it touches a liquid, it builds up more pressure with bubbles faster, but it only lasts for about 5 seconds. But if you leave no pressure and just let it sit on a liquid, it lasts about 30 seconds with minimal bubbles.
Spanish enrichment conversation Zooms are held 3 times each week.
¿Y qué te gusta comer mientras ves películas?
Home Flex Your Muscle is our weekly PE Zoom for our TK through 8th grade families, incorporating health, fitness, and dance. We believe that fitness and movement goes hand in hand with our social-emotional learning. Students learn to build on prior week's learnings to combine into a new dance routine after 4 weeks of continuous learning. Many who have never danced have embraced this new opportunity, attempting to go side by side virtually with teacher Mrs. Sloan. Our social-emotional learning also takes shape with our HomeFlex curriculum, Big Life Journals, teaching our students and even our parents to persevere with the growth mindset. And we have started a music club, supported by a HomeFlex parent, inspiring our students to enrich our lives with music. Plus, there is the innovative student learning that takes place with their own families, which is the heart of a homeschool program. Our parents and grandparents become the primary educator. We provide parents with the grade level standards and guide them through the process of targeting fewer standards for deep and meaningful understanding. So our students go on field trips and become experts on the topics and standards they learn. We have HomeFlex pen pals. Some HomeFlexers pondered how long it would take the letter to get to their new HomeFlex friend and how many days it would take for a response to come. And then a middle school HomeFlex student said, "Oh, it's like a text, but it takes 10 days to get a reply."
And people are like, how do you do it? I'm like, well, because I'm doing HomeFlex with Scarlett.
Their knowledge and their expertise really helps me figure out what I'm doing this crazy school year. And as a result, I've been able to be consistent through the chaos. This isn't a throwaway year for us. We've been able to really thrive through the year. My kids are growing and they're learning, and it's because we get the flexibility from homeschooling with the resources of our support staff through our district, and we are so grateful.
It has given us a lot of flexibility at a time when we really needed it. And we're finding that we are really learning a lot about Holden as a learner.
HomeFlex Picture Day was a little unique and customized for our families. We had sibling photos, special thanks to Hager Photography. Families of all shapes and sizes have enrolled in HomeFlex this year, and it is a privilege to serve them. And it is a privilege to become a part of Lakeside's tradition of excellence.
Okay. I had a couple of points that I was going to share too, and you could indulge me in just one moment. So I know HomeFlex is very new, so I wanted our new board member as well as our existing board members know that it opened just August of last year. So we've been open 16 months. We have 99 students, and we have 14 students with IEPs, and we have 27 students who have IDTs. They're students from out of our school district. And then we also have 3 students who reside in Lakeside who went to other districts who said that they had come back for HomeFlex. So we're really proud of the work that we're doing for our community and our neighboring community. And we want to thank you for your support.
Thank you, Hee-Jin. Those were great presentations. We really appreciate it.
Thank you
was
very
awesome.
much, Hee-Jin.
Thank you, Hee-Jin. That's great.
Okay. Next on the agenda, we have the organization of the board. The board, we will choose first a president, a vice president, and then a clerk. And we can have a board discussion about the offices beforehand. If someone would like to say anything, we can talk now. I am willing to serve as the president again if the board chooses. Andrew, I'd wondered about if you wanted to serve as vice president.
I would be interested in doing that, absolutely.
So Bonnie?
I think with all that's been going on with COVID and Holly's doing a great job, I would really like to nominate Holly for another year of being a president at this time, because I just think she's in the mix of it right now, and I think she's been doing a great job.
I'll second.
Any more discussion about that?
Nope.
I
Thank you for your
appreciate you
leadership.
taking that on again, Holly.
Thank you, Bonnie. It's a difficult year, but we're going to get through it. So, all right. So, all in favor, and since we need to vote one at a time. Andrew,
Aye.
Bonnie,
Aye.
Rhonda,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
and I will vote aye as well. I will nominate Andrew Hayes for vice president.
I will second that.
Any discussion on that? All in favor, we'll vote one at a time. Andrew,
Aye.
Bonnie,
Aye.
Rhonda,
Aye.
Sarah,
Aye.
and clerk. Bonnie, are you interested in being the clerk again?
Sure.
I'll nominate Bonnie to be clerk.
I'll
I'll
second.
second that.
Get a couple seconds.
Yep.
All in favor, we'll vote one at a time. Andrew,
Aye.
Rhonda,
Aye.
Bonnie,
Aye.
Sarah.
Aye.
I will vote aye as well. So that takes care of that part of the meeting. Thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
We now have a presentation from Dr. Johnson, and I think Dr. Johnson, you're going to do 2 presentations, is that correct? One now and then one at the next meeting?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm giving Kim a minute to get to her office. So just for the benefit of the public, we're under new OSHA orders here in this office, which is why we're all wearing masks, and I hope we're clear and our audio is working okay. So Kim is making her way back to her office so she can take her mask off. There she is, and present from there. So at the special board meeting of November 16th, the board heard a presentation from staff on the possibility of providing more in-person instruction for our students. In particular, we looked at the possibility of providing an AM/PM model for our kindergartners, and then also providing more days of in-person in-class instruction for our special day students. So at that time on the 16th, we had let the board know that these were logistically feasible, but our next steps would be to survey our parents and be in touch with them and find out if this was something that would work for them, something that they would want. So at this time, I'll let Kim go ahead and walk the board through the results of those surveys and where we are for next steps.
Hi, Kim. We don't have audio from you, Ken.
How about now?
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay, thank you. All right, let me get my screen up. Okay. So thank you, Dr. Johnson. We're here to, Dr. Linspear and I are here to give an update on our progress that we've made since our last meeting on our instructional models. So just a reminder, we talked about these the last time, but we just wanted to give a reminder about some of our goals for our revised instructional model. What we're looking for is equitable outcomes for all of our students. We're looking for safety for students and staff, and some consistency in an ever-evolving set of circumstances. This list was distilled from parent and staff surveys and feedback, and I know it's something that our board espouses to as well. So we're currently in a hybrid AB cohort model, and the context around that is that we're currently in an elevated, we've got a sense of increased risk to health. And then we're in a very volatile context. There's constant changes that the pandemic has thrown at us. And that is just part of living in COVID. So we did an analysis, and I presented this information to you last time. Our staff did an analysis of our current hybrid model to see what was working with our current model and what improvements needed to be made. So we identified as a staff that this hybrid model has enabled us to build stronger relationships with our students. And we've had fewer disruptions due to behavior. We've had increased engagement for in-person instruction, and our safety protocols are easier to implement in this hybrid model, and that is mostly due to our small class sizes. There are some things that we identified that we need to change. We need to make sure that we're providing access to high quality instruction for all of our students. We need to make sure that we have the ability to give more timely feedback, and we need to increase the frequency of student-teacher contact. And we also know that the off days put a significant burden on families, not just for daycare, but also for instruction. So boiling that down is our asynchronous days are posing problems for us. We'll refer back to these last 2 slides throughout the presentation. I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Linspear to talk about how we've worked to try to provide access to one of our student groups, our students in our special day class. Dr. Linspear?
Thank you. You can go to the next slide. So we surveyed our parents, our special day class parents, and we had a very positive response rate to the survey. This is in a large part due to our awesome principals and teachers who reached out to every single family who did not respond to the survey that we emailed out so that we could get as much input as we possibly could. As you can see, the responses to the survey were overwhelmingly positive in favor of 4 days per week of instruction. So our recommendation is to move forward to serve our special day class students 4 days per week in person. And we've also offered families the option who aren't comfortable with 4 days to continue in the 2-day model, because we just want to do whatever works for families and meet them where they are and at their comfort level. As you can see at Lemon Crest in the Mod Severe program, families are 90% in favor. At the Lindo Park Mild Mod program, our families are 76% in favor, with a couple of families who are undecided. They like the idea, but they're waiting to kind of see what's happening with the COVID situation. At Lakeside Farms, we have a 97% in favor rate. At LMS, we have 100% in favor. TDS, Mild Mod, 100% in favor. And in the Mod Severe program at TDS, 100% in favor as well. You can advance, Kim. So this is our proposal for how we want to roll this out. In some of our schools, we are facing a staffing issue because we pulled teachers out to be distance learning teachers, because we still have a significant number of students with special needs who want to stay in the distance learning model. But if we're going to bring all of our cohorts back together, we want to keep our class sizes as low as possible for safety reasons. So we are prepared, because we did not remove any on-site staff from Lakeside Farms. We're prepared to move forward with opening Lakeside Farms special day classes 4 days a week after the winter break, either on the first day back or as soon as we return to in-person instruction. At Lindo Park, we already have a position posted for an additional teacher. So far, we have 1 applicant. I'm hoping that when we return from winter break, we have more applicants. We knew going into this that it might be difficult to find staff at this time of year, but we're going to do everything that we possibly can to make that happen. Same at Lemon Crest, we have a position posted and we have 1 applicant for that position. And then we're ready to reopen our middle school special day classes as soon as possible, contingent on the concurrent model that's in development with distance learning, with the Distance Learning Committee. That's it for me.
Thank you. So how can we work to level the playing field for all students? How can we keep our staff and students safe? How can we build more consistency in an improved instructional model for the rest of our students? So those are the questions that our district leaders have grappled with over the last couple of months. I'll walk you through the decision-making process that we're using to build this model. Our certificated and classified administrators have met multiple times to look at a multitude of varying instructional models. The things that they had to take into consideration were, I mentioned the goals that we were looking to try to meet and some of the problems that we were trying to address with the hybrid model, but also taking into consideration the input from parents and teachers, requirements from CDE and health department requirements, the limitations of transportation, food service, custodial schedules, and the team recommended 2 viable models for our district. One of those models was a kindergarten AM/PM model and some level of simultaneous or concurrent learning for portions of the day. And we'll talk about both of those in just a moment. Our next step is we'll pull together a group of teacher leaders, and you'll hear me refer to this as the Instructional Planning Committee. And that committee will co-construct what the final instructional model for Lakeside will look like. Members of this team come from teachers, the Superintendent Teacher Advisory, Distance Learning Committee, Distance Learning Teachers, and site administrators. And then obviously we'll bring our updates to the board. So let's talk a little bit about the 2 viable models that the administrative team brought forward. The first model was a kindergarten half-day program, AM/PM, and it's split roster, which means that if there's a class of 24 kids, 12 of the kids come in the morning and 12 of the kids come in the afternoon. The reason that we brought this model forward, again, I'll keep referring you back to those other 2 slides, is it met this model met the goals, and it answered some of the questions that were raised from the analysis that we did of our hybrid model. The instructional minutes, the kindergarten requires 180 instructional minutes, and we were able to fit that into the school day. It fit into the teacher's contract. It worked for sanitation and maintenance operations. it worked for nutrition. There were challenges with our extended school services. We don't have enough staffing or space to be able to provide childcare for the other half of the day. And then we had some transportation, so challenges with transportation. So given those two restrictions, the next thing that the next question that we needed to answer is, could parents work with this model? So we did a survey and asked parents that, and I'll come back to that survey in just a moment. The other model that came forward was some level of simultaneous or concurrent learning for portions of the school day. And the exact model, we don't have an exact model or an exact definition of what this could look like. We know that our teachers are closest to where the learning happens, and they are best positioned to be able to help us build this model. So again, I mentioned there's our decision-making process. This is the teacher leadership team I was referring to. And again, the reason that this model came forward was, again, it met the goals that we set, and it answered some of the questions that were brought up from our analysis. It met the CDE instructional minutes and worked in the contract and worked for nutrition and worked for ESS. We still have some challenges with transportation. As I mentioned, we don't know what this will look like yet. So our next step is to go to the teachers and work with this teacher team to figure out what that could potentially look like. We just don't know what we're going to come out with. We could come out with a plan that could work across the district. We could come up with a plan that works, one plan that works for middle school and one plan that works for elementary, or we could come out with some choices of plans. We just don't know yet. We'll have to work with our teachers to see what that could potentially look like. So let's go back to that kindergarten model. We wanted to try to remember the question was, will this work for our parents? So we conducted a survey, and I'll give you just a second. I won't read it to you, but this is the survey that we sent out. This is a screenshot from the description of the survey. I'll give you a second to read that. And what we added to that survey was each site built a sample model of what their schedule could potentially look like. And so here's each of those. And I'll take you to the responses. So the responses were as follows. So at Winter Gardens, 46% of the parents indicated that this would be a workable model for them, and 54% said that it would not. Lakeview, 61% said that it would, 39% said that it would not, and you can see 65%, 65.5%, and 59% at Luna Park, Lemoncrest, and Lakeside Farm. So our margin there is relatively slim. I think we were hoping for some a larger gap there. So we've got a pretty significant, we don't have a significant margin there between the results. So it raised some questions for us, and we're grappling with, what would happen if we went to this model? Would parents be forced to go into the distance learning strand? And then do we have space in the distance learning strand to be able to accommodate the students? Would those families that it didn't work for then be forced to go to another district when they didn't want to? So we had some challenges there. Dr. Johnson, did you want to weigh in at this point?
Yeah, only just to say that in order to make a switch to the AM/PM model from where we are now, in order to make that work, I mean, we really would have needed to have a good 95% or so of the folks saying that this is something that'll work, because like as Kim said, you can see all the no percentages there. I mean, now we'd be faced with, well, what do we do? Either we're forcing those people to do an AM/PM model that they don't want to do, or we're forcing them to go to distance learning, which they don't want to do. So I will just say that I think at this point with these responses, at this point in time, it doesn't look like it's a viable a switch at this point. So So the numbers were helpful, and it was good to get the input from the parents, but we really would have needed a much larger number, I think, to make it work logistically.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. So returning to the idea of some level of daily, simultaneous, or concurrent learning. What we don't have is a district-wide definition for this yet. Again, we're kind of waiting for a committee of teachers to help us, teachers and administrators to help us co-create this. But our purpose of this committee would be to co-create an instructional model that reflects some level of simultaneous or concurrent instruction for portions of the day to answer some of those questions. How do we provide access for all students? How do we provide more timely feedback? How do we increase the frequency of student-teacher contact and provide some relief to families during off days? Our participants are coming from the members of the Superintendent Teacher Advisory, members of the Distance Learning Committee that was established at the beginning, that worked over the summer at the beginning of the year to build our distance learning plan, members of the Distance Learning Strand staff, whom I'll talk a little bit about in just a moment, school site administrators, and then support staff. So currently, we have approximately, I think we have 5 district office staff on the committee, 2 counselors. We have a board member. Thank you, Dr. Taylor, for participating. We have 15 teachers, and I'm sure that our site administrators will be participating. We have 4 meetings tentatively scheduled, and we will absolutely keep you posted on our progress there. So I mentioned our distance learning strand teachers. I want to just give you an update about what's happening with our distance learning strand. Our middle school teachers have distance learning classes. So a teacher could teach one section of English in person, another section of English in person, and then they would have a distance learning strand. So that's how those teachers are accomplishing the distance learning strand, or the students that are on distance learning at the middle schools. Our elementary teachers have distance learning classes. They have a class, just like a typical elementary teacher, and those students are in distance learning, and they don't move back and forth between teachers. So they are with their distance learning teacher all the time. This is a quote I just wanted you to see. We need to bring learning to people instead of people to learning. This is a quote that I found before COVID even started, and my goodness, our distance learning strand teachers have absolutely done that. We currently have 332 students in our English distance learning classes. We have 14 classes, and we have 189 Spanish immersion students in 9 classes. Some of the highlights that I picked up just from my observations this week, principals and I have been going into the distance learning classrooms frequently. And what we picked up so far is that we've seen some really stellar instruction going on. Our teachers are talking about learning intentions and success criteria. In other words, they're telling students in advance what it is they're supposed to be learning, and they're showing them how they'll know when they've been successful. So students are really owning their own learning. Small group instruction. I've seen a significant increase in small group instruction happening. Students are owning their learning, and there's a very high level of accountability. We've seen teachers bringing on lots of new strategies to make sure that students are being accountable, following along, showing them examples, and really taking a learning stance when they learn. Demonstrations of learning via technology. We have teachers that are trying some amazing things that they have never tried before. They're really taking chances. They're learning new pieces of technology, and they're making mistakes, which we really encourage them to do. Give it a try, make a mistake, learn from it, and try again. They're doing a fabulous job with that. Science integration, also doing an incredible job of integrating science into their curriculum. We brought on some new applications at the beginning of our distance learning classes. What we didn't want to happen is we didn't want kids to just be plugged into these apps and turn loose. And we have, I watched a class today where the teacher masterfully pulled up Khan Academy and worked through a math lesson and worked through problems and asked kids to explain their thinking and let them make mistakes and then let them correct their errors. It was really, really phenomenal. I will tell you that our distance learning strand teachers are facing some challenges. As you would expect, as the case rates rise, families want to move from hybrid into distance learning. As case rates decline, you'll have families that then want to move their students back out of distance learning and into hybrid. These classes, this model wasn't built to be a fluid model. It was really meant to be a class. These teachers have classes and students come to them every day. And so the changing in and out has been really, really difficult on the teachers and the students. They develop relationships in their classes, and it's difficult to acclimate new students in and get them caught up. That's a problem, not with the teachers, but with the model. So I'll say that these teachers have just done a fabulous job with what they were given. Here is a list of our elementary distance learning strand staff, and I would just like to give them a big giant kudos there. I'm sorry that we did not, I just got a text message, we forgot to mention Ray Cara as also being one of our phenomenal distance learning teachers as well. I apologize, Ray. So I'll pause there to see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Rigg and Dr. Winspear. Does anybody have any questions they want to talk about?
I don't have any questions, but thank you so much for putting this information together for us. It's very interesting and timely right now, so I appreciate your effort there. And thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor.
I do have a question as to the timeline that you're kind of looking at on the concurrent model. Do you have a timeline to reach a decision on that model?
I think what I'd like to do is I'd really like to pull our group of teachers together and see what we feel like we can do and by when. What we don't want to do, I think that in my last presentation, we said, okay, we're going to get this work started on this date, and I think it scared people. What I don't want to do is give you a date that that scares anybody. We really want to take this, go very thoughtfully. We want to make sure that our teachers are prepared to do whatever we ask them to do. So without a clear definition of what the model looks like exactly, I would be very hesitant to say that, I would be very hesitant to give you a date. I can tell you that our meetings are scheduled. We have a meeting scheduled in February, March, April, and May. It could, for what information for what that's worth. It could be that we get our team of teachers together and they say, look, here's something that we think that we can get started on. Like, for example, we think that we can get started on this piece of it if we had this support within 2 weeks. That's a possibility. And then, or the team could say, you know, this is our end goal, and we could chunk it out this way. And here's where we'd like to be in a month. Here's where we'd like to be in 2 months. Here's where we'd like to be at the end of the year. And then here's where we'd like to start at the beginning of next year. So I'm sorry I'm not giving you a definite answer, but I'd really like for our staff to be able to weigh in on what the model looks like, and so we could provide the support to figure out how we get it done.
No, it's a very helpful answer. I'm just looking at on the parent side of things that, you know, we're halfway through a school year already. And, you know, at this pace, am I even looking at getting a better hybrid this school year, or am I really looking to next school year at this point?
Awesome. That is total valid. I've heard that question before, very valid. What I can tell you is that we have sprinklings of teachers everywhere that are trying all kinds of different things. This feedback came from the staff. They recognize that our hybrid model needs some work. Many of them have indicated that our hybrid needs some work. They would love to see kids more frequently. So they're doing all kinds of different things. I will not tell you that that's a system-wide response yet, but which is what we would like. Obviously, we would like for there to be some equity across our district so that everybody is, providing kids with the same level of access. But what I can tell you now is that our teachers are phenomenal, and our teachers are working really hard to try. And we have some teachers that are trying that concurrent model. We have some teachers that are trying a model called an alternate cohort Zoom, where they're teaching all day, and then to their students that are in person, and then they're Zooming with the kids that are on the off days. You just saw Eucalyptus Hills, and they have a model that's similar to that across their site. A middle school is doing something similar at some of the teachers. So,
can I just jump in? I'll also add that our administrative team and have been working together, and we work with our teacher association as well to slow down some of the other instructional work we've been doing this year so that we can put emphasis on this. The holidays are here. It gets very choppy right now. So once we get back in the new year, we should be able to accelerate the process.
We do recognize the urgency. We absolutely recognize the urgency.
Thank you.
First off, thank you for this presentation. It was really helpful for me. I'm glad to hear that you're going to be evaluating some of the feedback from teachers. That was one of my concerns at the last meeting when we were talking about the concurrent model. I know there were some concerns from our teachers, and so I'm glad that we're bringing our teachers in to get some input from them. I think that's very important in this process moving forward. I'm also glad to hear that you guys are going to explore looking at the differences between elementary school and middle school. I think that that's an important component. One thing I would like to just throw in is something that I've been concerned about just because I've been hearing about it, has been the immersion program, and how the hybrid model has been impacting those students. I would certainly like to at some point hear an update from you all on how you guys are thinking about how we should move forward with that. And then just sort of to go to your presentation, you guys had mentioned that we're going to, propose moving to 4 days for SDC, and I noticed that I'm just sort of confused on the timeline. So, if let's say that the district chooses to go to virtual learning for the 2 weeks after the holiday, would that 4-day option start the day we come back?
Yes.
Would we be prepared to do that, or?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Just for the Lakeside Farms class.
Just for the Lakeside Farm class, and
Yes,
then
because we don't have a staffing issue there. Now, if we did end up going to distance learning for a couple of weeks after the break, then that may buy us enough time to place staff so that we could move forward at Lindo Park and at I'm blanking on the other school that we were waiting on for staffing, Lindo Park and Lemoncrest. That might buy us some time to hire some additional staff, but once we do, we're ready to move forward.
Okay.
The teachers were ready. They were a big part of this conversation on what they felt we needed in order to do it safely.
Great. And then, do we have any intention of, as we move forward in taking a look at the changes we're going to make to hybrid, and this may be for Kim, do we have any intention of doing a parent survey on some of the ideas that we're looking at? I think it is important just to get feedback from parents on some of the things we're considering doing moving forward. I want to make sure we're moving it forward in a balanced approach. So do we have an intention to do that?
I would assume that would be a really important thing for us to do. You saw back in our process with the kindergarten model, we got together with the admin team and we said, okay, will this work for the CDE? And will it work for nutrition? And will it work for the county health department? And will it work? So we kind of answered all those questions to make sure that it was a viable model. And then we said, okay, now that we know that it works, is this something that our families would be interested in doing? So that's the process that we went through, and that I would assume that we would do the same thing with these other models. What we don't want to do is put out a model for parents to give their input on that would not be viable for us. So we want to go through that process. Let's work it through with our administrators, work it through with our teachers, find some models that will work, then put it in front of our parents and get their input on it. But their input has been exceedingly helpful. It is the students and the parents we're serving after all, so that's a valid point. Great.
No, I appreciate that. And I guess just the last thing is, I just want to sort of throw out there, if you guys could just keep me up to date on, the discussions of, some of the academic growth measures that we're going to track moving forward. That I know that was one of the big concerns that we had as a board when we were choosing to extend hybrid. I think that it's important that, we are looking at achievement because the state is going to test us this year. And, I want to make sure that our kids are growing. I mean, it's not always about tests. I understand that, but we do have some measures that we need to hit with the state. So I do want to be sure that we're looking at how we're going to measure that and how realistically that works. So I think we should focus in on that. And, I would just like an update next time, and I'm looking forward to what you bring forward.
So, Mr. Hayes, that's also a point that we'll be representing in our local control accountability plan. So we'll need to provide that information to on our LCAP as well. So it's important that we do look at our assessment results. So we'll bring those to you. We'll bring those to you in updates on the learning models, but we'll also be bringing you updates on the LCAP as well, and they'll be embedded in that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, I would like to reiterate my colleague Laura's comments on, just emphasize the urgency. I do think that, we did make a statement to parents that we were going to have some amendments to this hybrid plan. And so I definitely want to make sure they're up to date on what we're doing, but I would also like to just stress the urgency so they can have clarity. I think parents really need to have clarity moving forward on where we're going to go. So I would just stress that to me, that's very important, critically important. I don't want to overburden the system. I want to make sure that we can do the right thing to make sure all students have great outcomes. That's important to me. I also want to make sure that it's important the parents know what we're going to do, because I think that's clear. This whole hybrid wasn't built to be as long as it's been, and that's why we're making fixes. And I just want to make sure we can enhance that. So thank you guys. I appreciate your hard work.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, then we will move on to trustee comments. We can start with Bonnie.
I don't have anything to report.
Okay, Rhonda?
I'll just report that since the last time I was here, I did go to the Keeping Christmas here and I met Laura for the first time and ran into a few people from the community. That was fun. And then on Tuesday, Dr. Johnson took us over to Lemoncrest to visit and see the wonderful things that they're doing there. And we also went over to TDS, kind of missed them, but got to visit the site and see the campus and all of that. So it was nice to be out on the campuses.
Andrew?
Okay. Well, I too went to school site visits earlier this week. It was nice to go to Lemoncrest and Lakeview and TDS and see all the great work that our staff is doing. So it was nice to see kids in the classroom and see them having fun and learning. So that really made my day. So I wanted to share that. And I'm, also looking forward just to next year. I think everybody is. So we're looking forward to some growth. But I did want to take a moment to thank all the staff, our teachers in particularly. This year has been, I know it's cliche to say, but unimaginable. And I just want to thank you all for your hard work, dedication to what makes Lakeside great, which is our quality schools and education. So I want to thank the teachers. I want to thank our administrative staff for their leadership. I want to thank my colleagues. You know, we've had a lot of robust discussion this year. We don't always have agreed on everything, but I want to thank you all for your leadership. Holly, your willingness to take the presidency another year and lead forward. So I want to thank you for that. And I'm also looking forward to giving an update on some legislation next month. I've been tracking some bills that are being introduced. I think it's going to be an exciting legislative session. So stay tuned for next month. So I'm looking forward to it, and have a great holiday. Have a great holiday, folks.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Andrew.
Andrew.
And Lara, welcome. And this is your first time for comments. Go ahead.
It is. Thank you. I'm just excited for the opportunity to join the other trustees on the board, and I'm just really looking forward to having the time to go visit the sites and really get to know everyone. So I'm just thankful and excited for what this next year is going to hold.
Welcome.
Glad to have you. I'm going to do something a little differently than this. I wish I could say I'd been to lots of places and seen lots of shows and that I just saw the Lakeside Middle School and the TDS programs. I wish I could say that, but unfortunately we all know that's not happening. So I do a lot of reading about the pandemic and about education during the pandemic. And I'd like to share a few things that I've come across. And the first thing is a meme that that I saw that said, "I'm tired of hearing people say kids are falling so far behind." Behind what exactly? We have third graders logging into Zoom meetings, troubleshooting technology glitches, learning to communicate their needs, and adapting to a completely foreign school environment. With these skills, I think they might just be pulling way ahead. And that meme got quite a few comments, and I pulled out a few. Actually, the person that posted it said, "I will say our current situation is far from ideal. However, this meme has a point. Life is what happens while we're making other plans, and there will be some good that comes from even the bleakest circumstance." Someone else wrote, "I am making connections with kids, and they are learning. I had a fourth grader create a Kahoot from scratch. That's pretty good. The control for growth has shifted from in my hands to theirs. If they accept it, they will grow. They and their parents need to put in the time and effort." Another wrote, "While I know things are not ideal, I can't stop thinking about how every year we start the year with, we are getting these kids ready for jobs that have not yet been created. My fifth grader now knows how to email for clarification. He knows how to navigate learning platforms at times better than me. And so I have to remember that on these days when we are all overwhelmed, we have to remember that on the days when we're all overwhelmed. So while I may not understand it now, I know that there is value in these struggles, that there is a reason we are being pushed out of our comfort zones." Another wrote, "As a person who worked from home for years, these are valuable job skills to have. The future is going to have more and more people working from home as companies save a lot of money on office space and office supplies and coffee. When people work from home, it may spark an interest in STEM fields for some. Of course, not all kids will thrive, but some really might." Another said, "I will say my kids have become extremely independent in handling their workload, tech problems, messaging teachers, etc. I offer to help and they say, no, I can do it. But they're 12, but they're definitely becoming responsible. There's always silver linings. We will survive this." Another comment, "When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change." And this one was someone not in our district, but very interesting. "The fact that we keep buying the kids are falling behind academically narrative of this pandemic is a prime example of how we have allowed our moral compass to be called into question. Kids are only falling behind on a scale the adults are defining for them, a scale determined by test scores and achievement measures that were designed decades ago to sort kids by their potential future impact on the economy. This is a system designed to uplift the advantage, and when applied when this pandemic, it achieves its purpose with terrifying precision, filtering those with the most resources straight to the top. Kids are only falling behind if we choose to measure them on scales that have been broken for decades. And if we refuse to change them, even during a pandemic in which thousands of their parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles are dying every day. Kids aren't falling behind. Kids are adapting. They're learning new skills. They are overcoming. Kids are surviving a pandemic that has shaken their world before they fully understood it. Adults who say they care about them need to put away their measurement tools and show them some love and compassion. This is illuminating to me. And I continue to see that we are in the same boat, but the same storm, but we are in different boats. The longer this pandemic lasts, the more differences we can see in how our students' situations differ. There are no easy answers. If there were, we would have done them already. As a district, we endeavor to ensure that all students get the best education possible during this difficult time. The teachers and the staff are doing great work with our students every day. And I know we talk about test scores, and Andrew just talked about how are the students doing. The test scores tests are here to stay. We have to have some form of measure, but sometimes there are other things than test scores. So, thank you. Now we will have an opportunity for members of the public to address the board. Lisa?
First up, we have James Cassidy.
Hi, James.
Hello, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
Hello, how you doing? I'm here.
I can hear you.
Well, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for taking the time out of your guys' personal lives to do these kind of things. I wanted to address a couple things that I didn't hear at all during any of the conversation for the last hour. And what I didn't hear is going back to a model of going back to 5 days a week full time. I can't believe that that's not a topic of conversation. I'm going to talk just briefly about the fact that you talked a little bit about number of cases going up, and that is accurate, but so has the number of tests also gone up. So from a ratio perspective, it's not actually going up. What is moving is actually the number of cases of deaths based upon the number of cases of positive scores going down. The numbers are this, based upon the CDC's website, information based upon the total number of San Diego County residents and the total number of COVID deaths. There are over 1,167 COVID deaths in a county that has 3.4 million people. That ratio is a 0.03%, not a 3%, but a 0.03%. Let me help you understand that. That is 0.03% of death cases that happen, probability of getting COVID and dying from COVID. Everybody else just gets sick. What that means internally is that the number of survival rate is that number -1. So you have a 0.9663% survival rate. So basically, people that are getting COVID are just getting sick. Now, there are obviously deaths, and I don't want to discount the deaths, but 40% of those deaths that are in those numbers that I just gave you actually come from nursing homes and hospice care, not from 8-year-old little boys who are attending school. So my concern is that you are exaggerating the fear of the pandemic because you're not actually looking at death cases. You have people getting sick and going back to work. I can attest, I know of an individual that has a small office where his employees had all 3 of the employees get sick, but yet they were back to work the next week. And so what we're doing is we're shutting down schools because of these scenarios. It just doesn't make sense. I want to bring up a couple things because we talked about testing, and it is academically proven that these students are doing poorer than expected. When the board initially looked at it, their initial response was, let's see. Let's see what the scores are and then make a decision. Last month, you saw the scores. There was only 1 score that was up, and that was reading. Everything else was negative. These children, and it's not just the teachers, because it's not the teacher's fault, this is nationwide, these 300 to 400% F and D score increases are failing our students. The final concern that I have, and I want to thank Andrew and Laura a little bit for kind of chiming in and getting involved. Andrew mentioned and talked about achievement and the measures and getting those statistics back. You guys need to be looking at that on a monthly basis. I can't believe you didn't even, you skipped a month by not looking at how the kids are doing and what the scores are. You also didn't mention.
Thank you,
how
Mr. Cassidy.
Emotional.
Okay, Lisa, next up.
Amanda Morris.
Hi, Amanda. You're muted. Okay, still muted. Amanda, are you there?
We'll go to Karen Castro.
Okay. Hi, Karen. Can you hear us?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. So I'm going to be short. I was short the last time I spoke, but just as a parent, I would completely support the district in deciding to return to distance learning for 2 weeks after the winter break. Seeing the large uptick in COVID cases since Thanksgiving scares me to think about what will happen after a 2-week Christmas break. My daughter attends Tierra del Sol Middle School, and we've had 2 notifications of cases this week. I feel like, sorry, this is not the time to take risks and move forward hastily. I hope that the district will continue to move forward with caution and make decisions based on what the science says. I teach in San Diego Unified, and we are still distance learning. We do have some appointment-based learning going on at site, but I'm thankful that my district has taken it cautious and moved slowly. And the gentleman who spoke earlier who said that it's, only 0.03% of the people die, I don't want that to be me or my family member. So whether that number is low, I'm not willing to take that risk. So I hope that you'll decide to keep our community, our kids, our teachers, the staff safe and healthy. So I would support doing 2 weeks of distance learning after Christmas break.
Thank you, Karen.
We don't have any other speakers.
Okay.
Oh, wait, Amanda came in. Hold on just a moment.
Okay.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Hi, Amanda, we can hear you.
Hi, so I'm actually was using my husband's Zoom. Sorry, let me turn it off. So I had to re-sign in. And then, okay, I've unmuted a couple times. Can you hear me?
We can.
So my son Jameson is always signed up as a speaker. And so he's going to be utilizing this account as well. So I'm actually going to change course. I had a couple of things I wanted to say, but just given the last speaker, I'm a 15-year employee of San Diego Unified. I am Dr. Amanda Morris. I'm a mental health clinician. I am beyond shamed of my district. I'm actually disgusted. When we want to talk about following the science, all of the science, CDC, White House, professionals, they all state that it is safer to be in school. As a daughter of a union member dating back 2 generations, it's a disgrace what the union is doing, and it's disgraceful that you are placating them. My patience is done. Follow the science. And when we want to talk about the science, my question wasn't rhetorical. The last 2 times, I'm still waiting for the data you used to postpone returning October 19th. I'm still waiting for that because the data pointed to returning. You've been presented with ample evidence in previous board meetings on the negative impact your decisions are having on our families, emotion, physical health, in addition to their education, yet you've not publicly nor formally addressed these things, such as mental health. Lastly, how is a district that holds themselves in such high esteem about their immersion program done absolutely nothing different from the other schools? What have you done to ensure our children are being immersed? There's no immersion happening. That is the foundation of your program, yet you've made 0 accommodations for that. I know for a fact your numbers continue to dwindle. There's other Facebook pages devoted to this. People are interviewing other schools. Multiple of us from different schools across Lakeside have discussed taking all of our asynchronous learning and actually doing it at home. But come January, if we're not in school, we're not turning it in. So therefore, when you're not going to listen to the data, you're not going to listen to the science, you're using your own personal emotional response, not your logic, to something that is so blown out of proportion. I can't even handle it when it comes to kids. So maybe when we all across the district stop turning in our homework, even though we're going to do it because we're going to educate our kids, and you start realizing not only have you lost, I believe it's 320 at this point, students and rising, you're going to lose that money. I am so tired. The data, White House, data, CDC, it is in black and white. If one more person as the union, because guess what? Every sector in the United States has stepped up while the unions have stepped down, and you continue to placate them. I am proud of my students' teachers. They are amazing. I have 0 complaints. There's no way I could run a Zoom classroom the way that our students are being led at Winter Gardens and at Riverview. But when it comes to a district as a whole, I am ashamed, and there's a reason why my kids don't go to San Diego Unified, and you're turning into them. That is all I have to say. My son will also be speaking, Jameson Cassidy. And go ahead and let him know when you're ready for him.
You can speak now, Jameson.
Okay, hello, my name is Jameson Lee Cassidy, and I am 8 years old. I'm in 3rd grade, and I am in Senora Mulholland's class. I think that we should be in school because we need our education. Yo me pienso que necesitamos ir a escuela porque si no agarramos nuestra educación, a ti no te vas a tener una escuela buena to go to. You guys should be opening our schools 5 days a week because we need our education. And if we don't get our education, you guys won't have a good school to go to.
Thank you. He is finished.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers, Lisa?
We do. We have Autumn Ellenson.
Hi, Autumn.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for letting me speak tonight. First, I'd like to acknowledge the amazing staff that has adapted to every change that we've thrown at them this year with a smile on their face. They have truly, truly been amazing. Second, I'm here to speak again on behalf of the parents that are in support of keeping our school open and adamantly disagree with closing for 2 weeks after winter break. I feel like with each passing school board meeting, I go into a deeper state of shock as we seem to move backwards in all of the progress that we've made this year. I understand that we had an outbreak at one of our schools. However, it was not because of something that the students did or that the protocols weren't in place. It was a result of adults making adult decisions. Until March 13th, 2020, attending public school was not a choice to be thrown around at board meetings. It was a compulsory thing, and parents could actually be arrested for not sending their children to school. In fact, I myself received letters from the district for keeping my child home too much for being ill. I was diligent, protecting the community, school, and staff, and this district shamed me for it. But let's look at some other history. Starting in 1852, states started enforcing children to attend school. In fact, in 1918, during the infamous Spanish flu pandemic, every state in the nation officially mandated students to attend school during one of the worst pandemics on record. That's because school is important. And our forefathers acknowledged that the strength of a nation is only as good as its educated citizens. I don't say all this because I don't acknowledge COVID. It's the opposite, actually. I have a deep love and admiration for the care and safety of this community, and I am absolutely disheartened that this board seems to be ignoring the other issues that have to do with COVID. They matter, they're important, and I am pleading with this board to actually acknowledge it. Right or wrong, as soon as the state mandated the attendance of public school, they also took on the burden of watching out for the children in the community. To ignore them now is wrong, and it's not okay. This board should not choose sides, but rather serve most of its constituents. It is your duty to serve the needs of most of the students in this district instead of focusing only on one single side of this issue. I urge you to take the middle path. I cannot understand the logic behind the board proposing distance learning for 2 weeks after we return from winter break. I assume this is the case because of that outbreak I mentioned a minute ago. However, it occurred at a single school in the district, and it was prior to a major holiday and break. Every other school in the district has remained open since Thanksgiving and has not experienced an outbreak that closed the campus. So why are the actions of a few guiding the decisions for the whole? Based on every other school, mask wearing and the precautions that have been put into place in the school setting are working. Do you want to look at the evidence? Brown University, highly respected scientists, studied more than 200,000 students and 63,000 educators. What they found, along with support from some smaller studies, shows that schools are not having super spreader events. COVID is being spread in communities where we have little control, not school for the most part. So then why are we closing down the most important institution in our nation? Closing the school is not going to help stop the spread of COVID. The best we can do is learn to live with caution in this climate. Your actions are causing a ripple effect that is harming our students just as much, but in other ways. Using knee-jerk emotional reactions that focus only on a single aspect of COVID instead of looking at all of the evidence is not serving the students that you've been voted in to serve. Please stop the madness. Stop the bleeding now. Thank you.
Thank you, Autumn. Any more, Lisa?
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving to, that's right, the TRAN one became its own, so we need to approve the action item J. Did you want to speak to that a little bit, Erin?
Yes, I can. So this is a resolution authorizing the issuance of a TRAN in spring of 2021, should we need it in order to have enough cash flow because of the state deferrals that are being implemented in February through June.
Okay, someone like to make the motion?
I'll make the motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? We need to do a roll call vote on this one. So, Bonnie?
Aye.
Rhonda?
Aye.
Andrew?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda. Would someone like to designate the items to the consent agenda? I didn't hear, what did Bonnie just
I'm
Rhonda,
sorry,
will
I
you-
move, I have to take
Oh.
myself off mute. I move that we move the items of business to the consent agenda.
You have a second?
And I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. And now we need to approve the consent agenda. Is there anything anybody wants to pull? Anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All right, any more discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Great. Moving down to the enrollment report.
Tonight we have the third month of enrollment for the 2021 school year that ended on November 13th. At that point, we had 4,668 students enrolled. And if you could look at the difference between the same period last year, so we've lost 5 students from the prior month, whereas the previous year we lost 20 students. So it does appear that enrollment is remaining a little bit more stable this year. We're having less change from month to month. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
So Aaron, if I understand that correctly, from last month, we're only down 5.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to say real quick before we go to Kathy Sprecko that our next meeting, which we had to approximate the time at 7. What we will do is when this meeting is completed, we'll take a 5-minute break and then come back for the next meeting. So I just wanted to get that out there since it's currently 7:17. So now we have Kathy Sprecko. Hi, Kathy. You're muted, Kathy. There you go.
Yes, I get that. So sorry. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So as teachers and their students and family are looking forward to this holiday break for some much needed rest and recovery, these last few days leading up to the break has brought teachers and students some much needed holiday cheer. A lot of teachers are doing some really fun activities, and I know they're themselves as well as their students are really loving it. Especially during this time where teaching and learning is very hard. It's a job we love, even as it's challenging us greatly. Holly, personally, the meme you shared warmed my heart more than I can say on this report. The responses to that meme were brilliant, and the fact that you shared them shows your leadership and your incredible knowledge of learning and education. So I really want to thank you for that. And it's all so true. Our students are learning so much in ways that I never thought of. You are reminding me to look for the good and the silver lining in all of this. So again, thank you. Regarding Kim's report on concurrent teaching, as you shared, Andrew, there is a lot of resistance to concurrent teaching from teachers, students, and parents because there's so much unknown regarding this, and the practice does vary greatly. Teachers and parents fear that if teachers are teaching in person and online at the same time, that it will take away from the little time we have with our in-person students. Your teachers are committed to making sure the students that are in person, in front of them, are reaching their goals. We have them for such small groups of time. We want to make sure that we are just reaching them for every minute that we have them. So whatever changes we do, we want to make sure that that progress is not lost. We understand the feelings of urgency. We truly do. And some of that is from people who don't realize how much teaching is happening on each student's in-person days. But we need to be thoughtful and careful in our planning to make sure whatever we roll out is sound and viable. Teachers will always do what is best for students. But we need to make sure that teachers have the training and the tools they need to do this right, because this will be another big pivot. We are all glad that there's a committee that includes a multitude of educators that will address these concerns and issues and make sure that we are moving to a model that better serves our students and doesn't actually harm any in-person learning. Next, I'd like to address you regarding negotiations. We know you have shared, so thank you, that you see your teachers are working harder than they ever have in their careers. So we are hoping to see your words reflected in the negotiation process. Also, I know there's an item on the special board meeting that is next, but if the district chooses to go to DL for the first 2 weeks after the new year, please give teachers the first day when we make this switch, as teachers will probably be spending part of their break making this change. So just giving us a day that we return to pass out supplies to our students would be greatly appreciated. Lastly, I would love and like to wish all of you a blessed and joy-filled holiday. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Lisa Ford, are you here? Lisa, is Lisa Ford on the call or on the meeting?
We'll get her in. Hold on.
Here she is. Hi, Lisa.
There, we got it in. Okay. The coach has asked you to start your video. Oh, all right. Well, hello.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for having me. I just wanted to thank, I want to start off by thanking you all again for always giving me this opportunity. But I especially wanted to thank Rhonda and Andrew for taking the time to talk with myself and David regarding the negotiation process with the Summer Systems Program. And I wanted to thank Aaron and Cesar for meeting with myself and David to work towards reinstating the program for the 21-22 school year. And I can't tell you how happy I am that the district has agreed to participate in the program again. As I have advocated for the last year to bring this program back for the benefit of our lowest paid employees. Many times the administration and board members praise the dedication and hard work of the classified employees and how they, what they put into their day. You know, a couple examples are our ESS workers are putting more teaching, taking on more of a teaching role during the week, and our food service people, you know, they're putting together 1,250 Christmas meals for our families. To say thank you, which you guys have done in the past, is one thing, but to me, this is a tangible way of you guys showing that you understand. They work hard for their money and they don't make very much, and the state is willing to help them out, and I appreciate how you guys have decided to participate in that program again. Again, thankfully that's going to change. Moving on, it has been very encouraging how we are able to communicate with the board members and the administration. I believe we've really come a long way in that area. And the fact that this summer systems program is happening is evidence to that. We were at a complete misunderstanding that got turned around. With that being said, we just held our election tonight, and I did not rerun for presidency. Tonight it was voted that David take on that role, and I know everyone will welcome his great connection and experience that he brings to the presidency. As a team, David and I will continue to work together with me as past president to improve communication and serve and improve the lives of our members. It's been a pleasure working as the presidency for the last 5 years. And I know that David is more than ready for this, and I know everybody's going to appreciate what he brings to the table. So thank you for all of your patience and hard work that you guys put into this. And I hope you all have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thanks.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for the 5 years of service to the CSEA.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Lisa.
you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Happy holidays as well.
Yep. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Okay. Erin Garcia, going to give us a business and operations update.
Just wanted to give the board a quick update on our construction projects tonight. Tonight on the agenda, you approved a bid for our Lakeside Farms parking lot project. That was won by a local East County contractor, Willock Contracting. They were the low bidder on the project, so they will begin construction on that parking lot on Monday, December 21st, and expected for that to be completed sometime in mid-February. We are also out to bid on the TDS Gymnasium project. We'll be opening bids for that project in early January after the break. And then Lisa mentioned it briefly. Just wanted to let you know that your child nutrition department has been working incredibly hard to prepare for the distribution of our winter meal kits that will happen tomorrow morning. They prepared 1,200 meal kits that will provide 1 week's worth of meals to cover our child's nutritional needs during winter break. They did this prior to Thanksgiving, and it was amazing, heartwarming to see. The families are so thankful for all of the food. So tomorrow morning, there will be a very long line wrapping around the district office with all the people in line to get those. And the meal kits are free to anyone in the community age 2 to 18, and they're first come, first serve. So they have 1,200 until we run out. We'll keep passing them out. That's all I have.
Thanks, Erin. Kim?
Yes, thank you. I am excited to tell you about our January PD Day. Our January PD Day is on Wednesday, January 13th. We're going to start the morning with a keynote from our illustrious leader, and we'll go into what we're calling geographically neutral instructional strategies for our teachers, which are instructional strategies that may be used face-to-face or in distance learning or both. Our teachers we have a group of teachers that are partnering with San Diego County Office of Ed to help build content that's specific to our district. They're doing a fabulous job. And they'll co-present on January PD Day. We're also bringing some self-care routines for our staff. We've tried to do that. We've done that for the last several years, and it's super important, especially now. And then we're providing some professional learning around one of our new apps that we brought in that the teachers have expressed an interest in. We did a survey to see what they wanted, and that was one of the things that was mentioned. So we're providing some professional learning around Imagine Learning. Then in the afternoon, the staff will go back to their sites. The teachers have mentioned, and the principals have mentioned, that just the need to work with their staff. They have their FPSAs to write. So they're doing a variety of different things at the site. So in the afternoon, the teachers will return to the site and work with their site principals. We're doing a ton of other things that just aren't as much fun as January PD Day, so I won't bore you with those. But we have January PD Day coming up. I hope you'll log in. I should also mention that we have in the past used a program called SCED. The prices has gone up, so the Ed Services team has actually created a program where teachers will register. They'll get an email with their class list, and the classes will feed into their Google Calendar. It's amazing. I'm super proud of them. So we're going to try a new program this year. So cross your fingers.
Thank you. Dr. Johnson?
Thank you very much. Well, since we have another meeting scheduled in just a moment, and I've got information for the board and a presentation to make, I will keep my comments brief and just say thank you again, and thank you to everybody. Thank you to our staff, to our teachers, to our administrators. Everybody really is working hard. The fatigue levels are real out there right now, but folks are doing everything they can to give the kids a nice last week of school before the break that looks as much like this normal last week can possibly look. So I'm thankful, very thankful to our staff and our teachers for that. And I will conclude there, and we'll have comments at the next meeting.
Okay. Then this meeting is adjourned, and it is 7:30 exactly. So we will come back at 7:35. Everyone can just stay on you don't have to log out and log back in again. We're using the same link. So thank you, and see you in 5 minutes. Back. Close. Maybe we should have taken a 7-minute break. We can wait a couple minutes. Is Andrew there? There he is. Okay, let me 1, 2, 3. Bonnie?
Yes.
Bonnie's there?
Yes, Bonnie's here.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, then we will go bring this next meeting to order. And first off, do we have any more comments, Lisa?
We do not.
Okay. Then we will go to a presentation from Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Madam President. And if you give me 1 second to pull up my presentation. So this evening, I'd like to address the board on our reopening, where we are, what's happened since we reopened, kind of where we find ourselves at this moment, and how we make the most prudent steps going forward so we can keep our kids in school. I wanted to start by just saying that our goal all along, ever since the shutdown happened that last March, was to figure out how to get our kids back in school and how to keep them in school. I think we all agree, and I will tell you that I and the staff believe that the classroom is the very best place for our kids. As we were moving through the summer, I was making presentations to the board on kind of progress and what we were learning and what we were hearing. I made it very clear on a number of those occasions that the effects of the closure and having kids at home were very detrimental to many of our kids. The emotional toll that they're taking, the families are under a lot of strain. And as we were working through the summer and working with the different restrictions that were being put on us and then lifted and then changed and lifted again, I think our presentations were pretty clear that we have to figure out a way to get our kids in school. Now, the challenge that we find ourselves in is what I want to really discuss with the board today, is that we, along with all districts that are open, are operating under a set of circumstances that we have to live with, and they're creating some logistical challenges for us. So what I would like to discuss with the board tonight really is primarily a logistical conversation. Yes, the cases are rising out there. We've heard speakers tonight. We've heard speakers on other occasions about varying levels of sensitivity to those things. And I'm just going to say that's more of a secondary issue to me right now. That is an issue. That is a concern, I know, for many in our community. Tonight, primarily, I'd like to walk the board through some logistical challenges that we're having and how we continue to keep our schools open. These are a couple of items I'm going to walk through with the board. I want to do a quick reopening timeline review. I'm going to share with the board the current status of school openings across the county. We'll look very briefly at the COVID case rates here in Lakeside. And then we're going to move to data here in our district, so the board can see really clear what has happened with our COVID rates and with close contacts and other pieces. Dr. Winspear will present that. And then I'll have our Executive Director of Human Services, Cesar Morales, share with the board some of the challenges that are arising from these positive cases and the close contacts that we've got. And then Dr. Winspear will talk a little bit about school and classroom closures, some of the ones that we've had, kind of how those decisions are made, what are the restrictions that we operate under, and then a recommendation for what we do when we come back in January. Whoops. So as the board remembers, our first day of school here was August 20th, and we were under an order at that time to open in distance learning. So we, along with all school districts, opened in our phase 1 full distance learning. On September 1st, schools in San Diego County were cleared and allowed to reopen. On September 14th, we did reopen for in-person instruction for our special day class students, and on September 21st, we reopened for in-person instruction for our general ed students, for everybody who wanted to come back. I will say I was very proud at that moment. There were butterflies. I know some of our staff were nervous. We had been closed for 6 months at that point. We had a whole new set of safety procedures and protocols. We weren't sure what was going to happen. We were one of the first 5 districts in this San Diego County to open. There are 42 school districts in San Diego County. Many of them are still closed. We were one of the first 5 to open, and that was a really important date for us. As you remember, on October 8th, the Board of Trustees did take action to extend phase 2 of our reopening plan, which we are currently still in. Thanksgiving came, and we're going to talk a little bit about what happened at Thanksgiving. And then a couple of points that have happened since then. Winter Gardens, as we know, pivoted to distance learning for 2 weeks due to an outbreak of COVID cases, a small outbreak, but an outbreak nonetheless. And then Lindo Park pivoted to distance learning this past Monday due to some staffing challenges that we have, which we're going to walk through in just a second. This is an overview of where schools are and where students are across San Diego County. So you can see there are roughly 28,000 students learning full-time. These numbers here include all public school districts, charter schools, and private schools. These numbers are updated as of today. And you can see about 97,000 kids are in hybrid learning, and about 385,000 are still in full distance learning. To see that graphically, it looks like this. So Lakeside is currently in that yellow pie slice, which is, I think, a good place to be. I think it's an important place for our students to be. I will say again, my own 2 children are in that green pie slice, and I want to get them back in school as well. I have a 7th grader and a senior at home. But nonetheless, Lakeside is in that yellow pie slice is where we are. We know that the case rates are rising. This is the case rates as of today in Lakeside 92040. So down here on the bottom, you can see, as we're all very well aware of at this point, the 4 tiers that the governor has put in place. In order to be in the purple, the most restrictive tier, it's 7 cases per 100,000. Lakeside is currently sitting at 25.9 per 100,000. It's not the highest area in the county, but it is higher than some. And that is just our current snapshot at a moment in time. So with that, though, I want to spend some time and talk a little bit about, I'm going to ask Dr. Winspear to walk us through the next couple of slides and talk about some of the requirements. In fact, I'm going to go back for just a second. So when we have a positive case, whether it's a student or a staff member, we are required to work with county public health. We report the positive case, and then we are charged with doing contact tracing. This is another set of procedures that we were never trained to do, never designed to do, never equipped to do, but we're all doing it right now. So our team has done an amazing job. I'll take this moment just to tell you that Dr. Winspear is the Executive Director of Pupil Services. She works with our counselors. She works on her day job is counseling and supports for students who need different kinds of mental emotional supports, family supports. She's done almost none of that in the past 3 months. Her work has been almost exclusively COVID related because of what we have to do. So she'll talk a little bit more about that, but whenever we have a positive case, we're required to, there's a set of notifications that have to go out, and then we have to do this contact tracing. We have to find everybody who was within 6 feet of that individual for 15 minutes or more in a 24-hour period, and then those people all have to isolate. So it's a very involved process. It takes a lot of time, and I know Dr. Taylor was just dealing with one this evening in your own school. So with that, let me have Dr. Winsper kind of walk through the numbers here, and you can get a sense of what we've been dealing with here since we opened. So Natalie, go ahead.
Thanks. So I'm going to show you the data in a couple of different ways. First, in the spirit of consistency, I'm going to show it to you as I've shown it to you in the last couple of months in a board meeting to board meeting context. And then we're going to look at the same item, whether it be close contact, symptoms, or positive cases on a week-to-week basis. So here is the breakdown from the board meeting to board meeting. So as you can see, from September 21st to October 7th, we had 8 students who reported coming into close contact with someone with COVID and 3 staff members. Between October 8th and November 10th, we had an additional 31 students and 9 staff. And then most recently, between November 11th and December 16th, so yesterday, we had an additional 61 students, totaling 100 students so far this year since we've returned to in-person learning that have come into close contact with someone with COVID, and an additional 28 staff members, totaling 40. So on the next slide, we're going to look at that data from week to week. So starting in the 3rd week of September, I've just plotted the student and staff close contacts that have been reported to us. And as you can see, we're seeing the same trend there that we're seeing in the community. Sometime around November, early to mid-November, we started to really see more of an uptick in close contacts. On the next slide, these are folks who are reporting having symptoms of COVID. So between September 21st and October 7th, we had 119 students who had symptoms of COVID and 11 staff members. And between October 8th and November 10th, we had an additional 332 students and 13 staff members who reported symptoms of COVID. And between November 11th and December 16th, we had 328 students, totaling 779 since we started in-person instruction, and an additional 38 staff, totaling 62. Keep in mind, when someone is reporting symptoms of COVID, that is automatically a minimum of 10 days at home isolating. And previously, when I spoke about close contacts, that's a minimum of 14 days isolating at home. So this has a big impact in student attendance as well as in staff attendance if they've had close contact or if they've had symptoms. So again, the next slide looks at symptoms week by week, and staff members who are reporting symptoms at the bottom. Obviously, we have a lot more students in this district than we have staff, so we're seeing that the student numbers are much higher for students who are experiencing symptoms and staying home for 10 days, isolating. So this next slide is our positive COVID cases. So these are the ones that Dr. Johnson was describing, where we are doing close contacts and tracing within our own setting, and there's a lot that goes into that process. Communication with public health, sending a lot of data to public health, making decisions with principals, writing letters, and then looking at, is it safe for that class to return, and in some cases for the school. So for a positive COVID case, that is also a 10-day at-home isolation. And it's not just 10 days, 10 days is the minimum. And then if the symptoms are improving and there's been no fever for 24 hours, the staff member or student can return. But sometimes, as I'm sure you know, that the symptoms last longer than 10 days, in which case the length of the isolation is longer. So from September 21st to October 7th, we only had 1 student and no staff who were positive for COVID. Between October 8th and November 10th, we had an additional 4 students and 1 staff. And then we saw a really big increase in the last several weeks. Starting from November 11th to December 16th, we had an additional 27 students, totaling 32, and an additional 23 staff, totaling 24. So on a week-to-week basis, that looks like the next slide. So again, you can see we were looking good until about the 3rd week of November, when our cases have really started to go up. It's the same thing we're seeing in the community at large. we're seeing here in the district.
Yeah, I'm going to pause here for a second. This is an important slide because Thanksgiving fell right about in here. And so there's a pretty good indication that the Thanksgiving break is when we, at least from a data perspective, who knows what's happening, why it happened, but from a data perspective, our numbers went up after the Thanksgiving break. So with that, let me have Cesar Morales, who's our Executive Director of Human Resources, talk about, well, actually, maybe I'll pause. Are there any questions on these numbers? First, this is a lot, or we can do it, Madam President, however you'd like. If you want to go through the entire presentation and circle back, or ask questions as we go.
Does anybody in the board have a question since we took a little break from the presentation? You have a question, or you want to wait till the end?
I mean, I can ask. I have a question on the total case data for the district.
Go ahead.
So it looks like 56 total cases confirmed positive COVID in our district. Do we know, or do we have any way to indicate how many of those were as a result of being in close contact with somebody on one of our sites?
So we don't know that for a fact because there's really no way to know where someone has contracted COVID. I would say that there are some cases where it is possible and maybe even likely that they were contracted in our setting, but the vast majority of those cases and the close contacts that people are reporting are coming from outside of our setting.
And it appears that the ratio here of students versus staff is that students, there's more students that have had confirmed cases, but I guess that would make sense because we have more students than staff in the district, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
And going back to your previous question, in the situation we had at Winter Gardens that resulted in moving the entire school to distance learning, the public health did call that one an outbreak. And what an outbreak is when you have 3 or more cases that they believe are epidemiologically linked, which means it's likely or possible that those people may have contracted the virus from each other. So from the perspective of it within our setting, there's really only 3 cases that we believe are potentially linked out of all of those. Again, I'm not an epidemiologist. I just am working closely with public health, and based on how they define an outbreak, those are really the only cases at this point that I think meet that definition.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So we can circle back on these numbers later in the discussion if need be, but with that, I want to go to Cesar Morales, who is our Executive Director of Human Resources, and talk about from a human resource perspective, and this is really where the crux of the matter lies now. Because these things are happening, what is the impact on us, given the constrictions, the restrictions, that we're under?
Thank you, Dr. Johnson, and good evening, trustees. The aim of these next 5 slides is to really be able to demonstrate the impact that COVID-19 is having on our staffing. The pie chart that you see there on the right-hand side, it shows all of the long-term leave that we've had since the first day of school. Since August 20th, 2020, we've had 165 what I call 1 week or longer leaves. And of those 165, 147 of them, 89% are COVID related. And so again, this is not your staff member who's taking a day off because they have a doctor's visit, eye doctor's visit, or a personal necessity. This isn't your 1-2-dayer. This is 1 week or more long-term leave. And again, 89% of these longer term LUSD leaves are COVID related. The other thing that we won't capture in this data that I'm going to present is the event when a teacher or a staff member needs to isolate, but they're able to complete their work at home. So the employee doesn't necessarily need to take a leave, but that employee is not working at the work site like they normally would. So those figures are not included in here. The next slide breaks down what that 89% of LUSD leaves are, which is of the 147 COVID related leaves, the way they break down, and I'm going to start from the bottom up, 60 of the 147 COVID related leaves are because a staff member, classified or certificated, is experiencing a symptom. And that is a 10-day mandatory step away from the work site. 36 in orange needed to take a leave of 14 days because they were a close contact. And then in red, 24 team members needed to take a 10-day leave because they tested positive. Now, the green, we have 19 employees, both in the classified and certificated classifications, who have taken leave because their child's school or childcare facility is closed due to COVID. And that's up to 12 weeks of leave. And in the event that they take it intermittently, meaning not 12 weeks consecutively, because in our case, for example, a hybrid program, the student might be attending school on Monday and Tuesday, so the employee can work those 2 days, but then they need to take Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday off in order to provide childcare. And so that turns into a much longer leave than just 12 weeks because they're using it intermittently. And then we had 6 employees use it because they were directed to self-isolate by their medical professional, and 2 employees took 10 days because they were a caregiver for somebody experiencing a COVID condition. On the next page, you'll see a distribution by reason and by month as to how these leaves are being used. Now, what I do want to reiterate is if I highlight the green, where in August we had 10 team members take a leave because of childcare or the school was closed. Well, just because those 10 started in August don't mean they end in August. Some of them are continuing through and are beginning to exhaust this month. So they start to stack up, if you will, as folks take leaves. Some notable trends that you see in purple, the number of team members experiencing symptoms. Month of October and December were the highest counts. And then progressively, the team members that tested positive, month of October and December is when we had the most number of team members testing positive. Now this has an impact. On the next slide, you'll see how this has an impact on our ability to staff. And so I took the 3 weeks after Thanksgiving break. The first stack of red and green is the week of November 30th, which was the first week immediately after Thanksgiving. And you see that we had 189 substitutes needed throughout that 1 week. And we were able to backfill 151 of those needed substitutes. And then last week, we had 268 substitutes needed, and we were able to provide 195. And then this week, at least counting Monday through Thursday, 207 needed, and we were able to backfill 155. And so if you look underneath each one of the weeks, it has a backfill rate. So we were able to, the first week after Thanksgiving, 80% backfill rate. Last week, 74%. And then this week, 75% if we just count Monday through Thursday. And you might ask, well, what's a typical backfill rate? Well, during these COVID times, we found ourselves in the 91, 92% backfill rate. And that's considerable, that's considering it going well. But again, these are COVID times. The next slide, I want to point out some figures. So if you were to look in our substitute system for teachers, you'd see 127 names in our substitute system. But if you really start to distill the information and see, well, how many of these folks, how many of these 127 have worked over the past 3 months, you'd see that only 20 of those 127 have opted to take a job or take an assignment over the past 3 months. And what's common is, you know, some of our substitutes are opting not to work or choosing not to work. Some have restrictions, and another variable that we need to consider is that some substitutes have restrictions in that they only want to work in a certain setting or assignment. For example, we have some substitutes that only want to work at the elementary level. We have some that only want to work at the middle school level. We have some that, you know, only want to work in the core subject areas. So these are all variables we need to take into account. And some of those 127 have taken on shorter long-term sub positions in our district or in other districts. So even though we have 127 substitutes in our system, It's notable that only 20 of them have actively been available as we need to backfill positions. So this is leading to some vacancies that you saw on the previous slide. Also notable over these past 3 weeks with our licensed vocational nurses, on any given day over these past 3 weeks, of the 6, we've had a third of them out due to COVID-related reasons. When you look at our campus supervisors, we have 45 substitutes in our system, but only 9 have worked actively in the past 4 months. And then for our instructional assistants, we have 35 substitutes in our system, but 8 have worked actively over the past 4 months. So that's just, the aim here is really to give you a glimpse of the challenges that COVID is placing on our ability to properly staff.
Thank you. And that's really the main point here, which we'll come back to, but this is our challenge right here, this slide. This is the challenge that we're facing. And as I said before, it's a logistical challenge. So we also wanted to kind of take a moment and walk through closures of classrooms and schools and kind of have Dr. Winsberg explain what we've done and how those decisions are made.
So these represent the closures that we've seen so far this school year. In October, we had one. We closed, or we moved our state preschool program to distance learning for 2 weeks, and that was due to a positive COVID case and close contacts. We also moved Winter Gardens in November to distance learning for 1 week, again, due to a case in close contact or cases in close contacts. At Lakeside Farms, we moved 1 class, just cohort A of that class, to distance learning for a couple of days. And then in November, we've seen our cases triple since November of needing to close classrooms or schools. So that 5-class closure at Winter Gardens turned into a whole class closure, and we talked about that. There was an outbreak. We made the decision to close the school at 12 cases. The public health threshold is 5% of the people who are regularly on the campus. So we've calculated those numbers ahead of time, and 5% of those students or those people having COVID would trigger a recommendation from public health for us to close or move to distance learning. When we made the decision to call Winter Gardens, we were only at 12, but we had a really steep trend line and every reason to believe that that 12 was going to turn into 15 relatively quickly. And within a couple of days of making the closure or moving to DL, we did get up to 16 cases in Winter Gardens in this situation. So at LEAP, we've also had to move one of our tuition-based preschool classes to distance learning due to a case in close contacts. We've had to move our Mod Severe class at Tierra del Sol to distance learning, also due to a case in close contacts. Riverview, we moved 1 class, cohort A only, to distance learning for a couple days due to a case in close contacts. Lindo Park, we moved the whole school to distance learning because of the staffing issue. So there were cases, and those cases impacted enough of the critical staff on that campus that we had concerns about being able to operate the school safely and continue the program safely. So at that point, we made the decision to move Lindo Park to distance learning. And then at Lemoncrest, we have closed the Mod Severe class, or moved the Mod Severe class to distance learning, also due to a case and close contacts. So what are some of the next slide, Andy, we talk about what are some of the considerations that we make when making decisions to close a class or a school. So we're looking obviously at the total number of cases and the close contacts of those cases and how many people we have requiring to quarantine for a significant period of time. And then also in a lot of situations that impacts our staffing. Do we have the staffing we need to continue to operate the class safely? Or if the teacher is a close contact or a positive case, then they're able to work, we move to distance learning. For a school closure, I mentioned the 5% public health threshold. So we're monitoring that closely at all of our sites. And in the case of Winter Gardens, we felt really confident that we could predict, based on the trend that we were seeing, that we were going to hit that 5% threshold. And our interest at that point was just to minimize the spread as much as we possibly could. So that was based on a discussion and a recommendation from our public health folks, who I do want to say have been really, really wonderful to work with. We have 2 public health case managers that are assigned to our district. I feel like they're my new best friends. We talk often. They talk to the nurses often, and they help us kind of work through these difficult situations and figure out close contacts and make sure that we're hitting all of the things we need to be doing and talking to all the people we need to be talking to. We also have to look at staffing issues, like in the Lindo Park situation. Staffing was definitely an issue that caused us to look at, or caused us to move the whole school to distance learning. And then, like I said, our consultation with public health has been very helpful as well.
Thank you. So I want to take a minute. I'm gonna actually stop my share here, and I'll come back to the recommendation in just a second. I think to put all of this into kind of a nutshell, we've opened our schools in September. We have a commitment, the board has a commitment to keep our schools open, the staff has a commitment to keep our schools open, and continue working towards a full reopening when conditions permit. That's number one. We experienced a spike after Thanksgiving break. You saw the numbers, what we experienced. That spike after Thanksgiving break is causing us staffing problems. We don't have the substitutes to fill the positions. Some of the positions that are out are key positions. They're supervisory positions, they're LVNs, they're people who are providing safety for our kids. Some of them are teaching positions as well. That's causing us a big problem. We have every reason to anticipate another spike after the next 2 weeks of the holidays. There will be travel, there will be gatherings, and we can anticipate, we've already experienced it once, we've got real data on that, every reason to anticipate that it happens again. So the recommendation that we're making is a short-term measure, a short-term proactive measure to ensure our long-term success in keeping our schools open as we continue to move towards reopening. And this is why this is why staff is recommending 2 weeks after the break to operate in distance learning. If there are cases that pop up during the break, and we have every reason to believe, again, that they will, and we have school resumes in person on January 4th. Our recommendation is still that school resumes on January 4th, just to put that out there. We're not talking about closing down schools. School resume on January 4th. We're recommending that we resume in distance learning for 2 weeks. Because if we come back in person, as we are right now today, on January 4th, and we're dealing with another spike in positive cases, we will be, frankly, scrambling probably that weekend beforehand, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday beforehand, possibly the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of that week, and maybe making decisions like we had to do with Lindo Park. So Lindo Park this past week, it was last Friday night that the cases it was actually a single case that was reported to us. On Saturday, Cabinet was working through the case. We had a meeting on Saturday morning to talk about the logistics of the school. This was actually a perfect example. It was a single case, and it happened to be a key person, obviously for privacy reasons, I can't go into it, but a key person who was close contact with other people who, when we all those people then had to isolate, we were sitting there on Saturday morning saying, we can't guarantee that we can adequately provide, we can provide adequate supervision for the staff, or for the staff and the students, excuse me, for the students primarily, on Monday morning. And so we had to make a decision to have them return to distance learning on Saturday afternoon. We were notifying parents of this, it's gonna happen on Monday. That's extremely disruptive to families. So coming back to where we are going into the Christmas break. We go into Christmas break right now, and we have another spike. Like I said, we're probably working that Saturday, Sunday right beforehand, getting the reports of those spikes. And I'm very fearful and cautious of us having to call families on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night saying, there's no school tomorrow morning. That's extremely disruptive to our families. I recognize that a return to distance learning for those first 2 weeks is also a disruption. Again, we're in COVID right now, and we're having to make tough decisions. There are no great decisions. I'd like to recommend decisions that, again, are as proactive as we can possibly be. I'm sitting here on the 17th of December, knowing what we know right now and the data that we've got right now. If we were to schedule 2 weeks of distance learning when we come back, we provide ourselves a little bit of a buffer. We can notify parents now. At least they've got a little bit of time to plan. Again, I recognize that's a disruption, that's a challenge. My fear, again, is that we're being notified of positive cases. We're isolating people that weekend before we get back, or those first days when we get back, and we're shutting down schools on a dime. the night before. And that's what I'd like to avoid. So if again, the idea here, or the thinking is, we can provide this 2-week period where the cases come and we're already in distance learning, instruction can continue. Most of all the close contact numbers that you saw here, folks are still able to, they're not sick, they're still able to work. If we're in distance learning, instruction can continue for our kids, we can keep a consistency, we can let people tick off their required quarantine days, right? While we're in distance learning, the 19th of January, this is the day after Martin Luther King Day, we resume and we keep trucking through the spring. So that is the rationale that the staff is looking at right now. We would keep ESS open for families. That's a different set of circumstances. They're not experiencing the same staffing shortages, so we want to make sure we can still provide that service for our families. But that's where we are at this moment. It is a staff's recommendation that we take this proactive step to ensure long-term success and with our reopening plan.
Okay, open it up to comments from everyone.
Well, I have a few questions on a couple things. So we talked about the criteria for closing a school, which from the public health department, is that 5% number. Are any of our schools, as it stands right now, near that 5% level?
I would say right this second, no.
Okay, that's helpful. So, because what I'm trying to understand here is the health department makes recommendations to us that if we hit that threshold, we should close a site. And so I'm just trying to understand where we are. So if we hit that 5%, we close it. What's the process for reopening that school?
So it's basically a monitoring process. So we're looking at how the case rates continue through the closure. And so for example, in the case of Winter Gardens, we did continue to see cases over the next few days, and then they started to trickle off. So when we hit that point, well, it's going to be winter break, but if school were still open and we hit that point, we would be able to reopen because we don't see a continued increase in cases. So we haven't yet that was the only school that we moved to DL because of the meeting the threshold. So we also haven't yet experienced reopening a school that we've had to move to DL because of COVID cases. But knowing what we've been doing so far, if next Monday was a school day and based on the case rates, we would likely have a consultation with public health over the phone, discuss the case rates, and let them know that it would be our intention to reopen school. And I don't see at this point any reason why they would say no.
Okay.
And
So,
I'm sorry, can I fill in on that a little bit?
Sure.
Just want to say that it's important to note that there are two kind of scenarios and that we've experienced them both. So Winter Gardens was the scenario that you're describing with 5% positive cases, and the recommendation came from them. Lindo Park was a different one. It wasn't 5%, it just happened to be the certain individuals that created the problem that we couldn't fill, we couldn't backfill those, and we found ourselves in a safety and supervision issue.
Okay. So in addition to guidance from the health department of closing a school, I also understand there to be guidance on when a district should close to in-person learning. And could you explain sort of what that threshold is?
The threshold that public health has given us in that scenario is if 25% of the district schools are closed, then they would recommend considering closing the entire school district. With the 2 sites that we have closed right now, I think it's 2 out of, check my math on this, I think it's about 22%, just shy of that.
Yep. Okay, so we're not meeting the health, what the health department would recommend us to move to in-person learning.
No.
Okay.
I think it's also worth noting that we were in close communication with public health late last week on the potential of closing Eucalyptus Hills because of cases there. However, the cases were spread between the Home Flex program and the TK program. And we were able to, after many conversations by phone with our public health contacts and then their supervisor, we were able to kind of paint a picture for them about how the programs are separate, and we don't believe that the cases were related. But I just do want to let you guys know we were kind of on the cusp of potentially looking at another school, but we were able to effectively advocate for, we don't think we need to do that right now. And again, you know, with smaller schools, it's hard. It's you get to that 5% mark much quicker.
Well, that makes sense, particularly with, and it's great that you guys, you know, we're talking about the distinction between Home Flex and that, because I think that's an important factor. So that's really great. That's the end of my questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
I have a question as to what do you think is going to be any different between going back to school on January 4th or going back to school on January 19th? To me, it just looks like we're just kicking the can down the street, but there's not going to be any change because everybody's still going to be they may be learning at home or still traveling because they have the option to, because they're distance learning. So what's the difference between the two dates?
Yeah, again, I would say that the primary consideration here is staffing and our ability to fill vacant positions. So the difference is if the holiday season, like the November one did, like Thanksgiving, if the holiday season causes a spike in cases, then we're dealing with those that first week. If we're dealing with those that first week and we're sending people home, now we're in a situation where we have the potential of closing schools right away. And if our schools are in distance learning, then those staff members, your LVNs, your bus drivers, your campus supervisors, your tutors, whoever else it may be, are able to do their required quarantine that public health requires with no impact to the learning for the kids. And again, if we are sitting here on January 5th or 6th and there is no spike, I'm the happiest guy in the room. I just, you know, based on the numbers that we've got, this is I think it's fair to anticipate that it's going to happen.
I would just like to speak a little bit to the staffing issue because this is the world that I live in, and I know that I've had people out for various reasons, and finding substitutes is just almost impossible right now. Especially, some people are so afraid to come to campus that they won't come to campus, and then there's a specialized nature to teaching virtually, and some people are just afraid to teach virtually because they don't know how to do it. And so I've been teaching a class. It took me 3 weeks to find a substitute to come in. So I taught a virtual class for 2 weeks until I finally got one, and I've worked with her. She's done at the end of this week. And so, you know, hopefully we'll be moving forward, but it is a challenge. The staffing issue is a huge challenge when there's nobody there to fill the vacancies. And so, and the people that are there are not real confident in what they're doing. So I worry about the quality of learning that the kiddos are having too, with an inexperienced teacher there for so long. That's my point.
What about, Kathy mentioned the Monday as a prep day. If we had it as a no school day, would that, can we even do that?
I didn't hear a no school day. I heard an asynchronous learning day. And I personally believe that this is a big pivot for the teachers, and they do need some time to get it together. That is not their break time.
No.
They'll work on their break time anyway, but.
I agree with that. So so asynchronous, would that mean no contact with the students? They'd get assignments from like Blackboard or something, or?
No, so what we did with Lindo Park, I'm not going to on here, sorry. What we did with Lindo Park this week is, so our current schedule has on Wednesday, the teachers check in with their class. They do a social emotional learning in the morning, and then the rest of the day is asynchronous. So we made that the Monday of this week one of those days, and then there's Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Or what am I saying? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Sorry, were full distance learning days.
So what I'm hearing you say is that they will check in with their class and then release them to do asynchronous learning. Okay.
Yes.
Just if I could, a point of clarification.
That is that's a requirement that students, that they check in for 30 minutes and then go to asynchronous. That is a requirement. And we did, as Dr. Johnson mentioned, we've done that for that closure as well as the school closures because of the power outages. But what we did was on the Wednesday remained a typical Wednesday. So on the day of the switch, that became a Wednesday schedule, but Wednesday remained a Wednesday schedule, as opposed to Wednesday being a full learning day.
I see.
That makes sense.
What other questions do people have?
I just know the staffing issues. I mean, where I work too, we deal with a lot of staffing issues too. It was a huge topic at my work today, being shorthanded, you know, due to people being on leaves of absences and personal contact and.
Yeah. And again, I just want to say that our staff has been very, very good about the safety protocols. The kids have been doing a great job with their hand washing. We're just up against a set of guidelines that we can't do anything about. Every time there's a close contact, they have to go home. Every time you saw the numbers of 700 and some kids, every time a student says, I've got a scratchy throat, I've got one of the symptoms on this list that we've been given, they have to go home. These are not the fun decisions. These are not the decisions I like to bring to the board. These are I'm trying to be, you know, our staff is trying to be as proactive as we can and minimize disruptions. It's a small disruption to minimize avoid a bigger one, actually. So, I mean, I'll tell you that I get nervous about the virus going through our maintenance and operations crew, to be honest with you. If our maintenance and operations crew were to have to quarantine for 14 days, all of them at the same time, I don't know how we would have school. If there were an emergency, if there were a water main break or a gas leak or something, you need those people here. So fortunately that hasn't happened, and those guys have been very good. They don't drive in the trucks together and they wash their hands all the time. And it's just that school districts right now are facing a set of circumstances that really puts us in a bind. So my hope is that if the board were to do this, again, we would hit the ground running on the 19th with minimal disruption. I can't predict, I don't have a crystal ball, but that's the best recommendation I can make at this point in time.
We get to the item of business, which is to authorize the move to distance learning for the first two weeks following spring recess, starting on January the 4th. Somebody want to make a motion? Somebody?
I move that we authorize the distance learning for 2 weeks following winter recess.
And I'll second that.
Further discussion?
Sure. I'm going to speak against the motion. So I think one of the things, this is so challenging because the goal that all of us agree on is we want to have our kids get a quality education. And I want that to happen too. Like I received when I was here in Lakeside. And I feel like, and I think we know, distance learning doesn't work for all of our students. We know that because we moved to a hybrid model to address the concerns from that. It doesn't work for all students. Now, it works for some. There are some doing really, really well. And there are others who are in hybrid now flourishing. I feel that that's a greater disruption to their learning. And I want to make sure that we don't make a unilateral decision that sort of slows that progress that we've made, because we've made progress and we've worked hard to make progress. Our teachers have worked hard to make progress. All of our staff have worked hard to make progress. So, you know, that's sort of my perspective here. So I really urge us to reconsider that. The health department, we don't meet any of their recommendations at this point to shut down schools. We don't meet that. 22%, we don't meet that. Now, if we meet that, we're going to have to consider this. We don't meet that at this point. Our schools don't meet even their recommendations on some of that for that 5% threshold. So I would encourage us just to focus on why we went to hybrid in the first place, which was to help the students who were not doing well in distance learning succeed. That's what I'd like to see. So that's why I can't support the motion today.
I hear what you're saying, Andrew, about, we're not at that number of cases to warrant a shutdown. On the other hand, if we don't have staffing, we can't have school. If we can't get subs for the teachers, I mean, Rhonda just talked about that she's been teaching, I think, the majority of the last several weeks. And, in another district because they can't get a sub. Same situation. If we are in the position of having school open and the kids are on their way to school on Monday morning, and we have 6 or 8 or whatever positions at every school that can't be filled, now what are we going to do? And I think that trying to avoid that possibility and letting the parents know now we're going to be out for 2 weeks, rather than letting them know on Monday night, Tuesday morning, whatever, that we can't staff and we need to shut down. I don't want to go back to distance learning for those 2 weeks either, but I think that from a staffing perspective, and we have to look at all aspects of it, not just the number of cases, which have spiked greatly in the last several weeks, couple weeks maybe even. And if we can't staff, then how are we going to have school?
Fair points. And I think that I would have two responses. One is this decision is completely operating under an assumption of ifs. We hear ifs in every explanation. We don't know that to be true. We had to shut down Lindo Park because we had this problem. We knew we had to do it, and we did it when it came. So that's the first part. The second part is, I think we really have to be thoughtful about what our parents, I believe, will understand if we say, look, we can't meet the need, but we've got to try. That's our job. We have to provide education to our students. That's our job as educators. That's our job. So we have to do it. And if we can't meet it, we can't. So that's sort of where I am with it.
I hear what you're saying, Andrew, and it's certainly not something that I am like, hey, let's, it's not something I am excited about at all. There's a lot of it that is really troublesome. However, I'm thinking about, let's come, Monday morning when we're coming back from break. You have 3 teachers calling sick, 1 substitute. You can't double up classes like we could in the old, in the days before COVID, not the old days, but, in the days before COVID. There are no options. So then what do you do with those kids that you have no teacher for? You have, and I get we're operating on assumptions of ifs. You're absolutely correct. However, I'm seeing it as a short-term solution to get our kids back in safely as quickly as we can to stay open more long-term, rather than coming together and here and there and, willy-nilly all over the place. And so this family is impacted, that family is impacted. It just, when I first heard of the idea, because I think I'm going to be doing this too in my scenario, I was very much against it. But when I sit back and I think about it, I see logically why it's on the table.
Another thing that I thought of is so if you're in cohort A and school comes back in, and we come on the 4th, and you can't come because you're either a close contact or you have COVID, or you know, you have something that looks like COVID, and you can't come to school. Now you don't have any contact because you're in cohort A and the cohort. And so if we're in full distance learning, even if somebody's sick, they can go to school. I mean, assuming they're not so sick that they can't learn that day. But this would keep, this would give the students who are not able to come can still learn on those days. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, so currently what happens is students that go on
Just have their asynchronous work.
you're correct in that students that would have to go out
Some students that have a distance learning teacher. That's correct.
And when somebody tests positive, it could take up to 3 months before they could get a negative test back. I mean, it stays in your system. I mean, that's what we're having a lot of our issues is our employees are still testing positive 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks out. So they're still on their leave because they can't get a negative test because for whatever, it can stay in your system and you keep getting those positive tests. So, I mean, that impacts the workplace because, you know, if you're a person and then you go and you have COVID, you've tested positive, but then you keep going and getting a test and you're still testing positive 3 or 4 weeks out. That's what prolongs those leave of absences too, is those trying to get a negative test. Sometimes you don't get a negative test. It's not that simple. That negative test isn't that simple. Sometimes it stays in people's systems for a while.
So I think in this debate, we're talking about scenarios, and I think that's important. We have protocols to address those scenarios. It's proven. We've seen it happen. We did that with Winter Gardens. We did it with Lindo Park. We can address the scenarios that we're discussing. We have protocols. Our parents and our community are trusting the protocols. We've seen it. They've kept their kids in our district. I think we just need to stay the course, not make any changes. This is why we did hybrid in the first place. So we can provide all our students good quality education. So I don't want us to get too focused on scenarios. We have protocols that our staff have worked really hard to put in place.
You know, I have to agree that we're in a lot of what if. What if January? What if the middle of January? We're still not. Then we're still in a distance learning, you know. Either way, whether we have an abrupt closure because of COVID cases or staffing, or whether we're doing it ahead of time, it's equally disruptive to the families. And I think a lot of us would rather find out the night before or the morning of that we can't take our kids to school and have that option of actually getting to go to school if for the what if that we don't have the staffing issue, to instead, you know, having to plan ahead and okay, they're not in school, and then we have that next 2 weeks and we're not any better staffing, so then they're not in school, and then we run into the what if of when are we ever back in school? And you know, we're just going to have that issue no matter what. So I, as a parent, would much rather have the abrupt closure than the planned closure.
Other thoughts?
I'm the complete opposite. As a parent, I need to know ahead of time. I'd like to know ahead of time if my kids aren't going to school. Learning on a Friday night and I have to work and I can't make plans and find somebody to, you know, I'm a planner. I need to know ahead of time. So I don't know. I think there's probably out there in the audience, there's probably a mixture of parents that want to know ahead of time, and parents that don't want to get that call on Sunday night, and would rather have known 2 or 3 or 4 days ahead of time that there's not going to be any school on Monday. So I think that there's we're not going to be able to please everyone. There's just no way to please everyone in this situation,
Unfortunately, I think that's true. I mean, you can make arguments for both sides, no doubt. I mean, we have made arguments for both sides. I want to make sure everyone gets everything out there. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Go ahead.
I was going to say, for what it's worth, everything that's been mentioned here has been discussed by our cabinet and our management team ad nauseum for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Yeah, decisions are very difficult to make in COVID, and you're right. There are what ifs, and sometimes we have to make the best, most prudent forecast that we possibly can, not knowing what happens. Like I said earlier, if we get into the first week of January and there is no spike, I am the happiest guy in the room. Again, but it's the 17th of December, and this is staff's best thinking at this moment.
Well, before we vote, I want to make sure everyone's had the opportunity to say everything they want to say, ask every question they want to ask.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm good. I think I shared my piece.
Okay. Well, then we'll vote, and we'll vote one at a time to make sure we get this right. Andrew?
No.
Rhonda?
Yes.
Lara?
No.
Bonnie?
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. So if there's no other business before the board, then we will adjourn.
Have a great holiday, everybody.
Have a great
Everybody,
break.
yeah.
All the teachers, rest and relax. Get your energy back for January. Thank you so much. Happy holidays to
Thanks for your
everyone.
hard work.
Bye-bye.